Hi kids! Ready for some overly complicated medieval feudal politics again? It was the late 11th century. David's father here, King George II, had a bit of an issue. Georgia was being invaded by Turks. The Seljuk Turks, that is. Those awful barbaric steppe bastards. The same fellows that had even overrun Anatolia and so utterly defeated even the Byzantines. By taking their emperor, Romanus IV Diogenes, prisoner in 1071. Well, anyhow, those Turks, they were up for conquest, loot and blood. Not too much of a nice bunch of fellas, no. And Georgia was their target. In what medieval Georgian chronicles refer to as Diditukova, or the Great Turkish Invasion. Several provinces of Georgia almost instantly, just like that, became completely depopulated. In other words, the population got raped and slaughtered. Thus, Georgia was forced to sue for peace. The country, it became a tributary of the Seljuk Sultan Malik Shah I. What this caused was Georgia got occupied, split between rival noble and ruling factions, and utterly defeated. Now watching his kingdom slip into complete chaos, in 1089, George II here decided to just cede his crown to his 16-year-old son, David. Perhaps he'd be able to handle the mess. He was a freaking 16-year-old, born in 1073. What a rational-sounding decision. But David here was a smart fella, and he had a plan. A purposeful plan. A plan to bring order to the land by bringing the unsubmissive feudal lords that split from the kingdom back together, to centralize the administration and to form a new kind of an army that would stand up against the Seljuks, an army that would drive those pesky Turks far away from the peaceful realm of Caucasus. So an army that would even rival the Seljuks that had just completely wasted up Eastern Roman freaking Empire here. An army that would stand against the armies of the Seljuk freaking Empire. But on top of that, drive them away. That was the plan. Well, how did it go? Between 1089 and 1100, King David organized a small detachment of his armies to restore order around the kingdom and to destroy isolated enemy troops. What was also established was a highly effective medieval spy network called Mstovaris, which provided some helpful intelligence, among other things. David provided humanitarian aid to the devastated regions. He began the resettlement process and helped to revive major cities. Well, then some Deus Ex thing happened and in came the First Crusade. This was David's chance to score his victory over the bloodthirsty Turks. The entire Europe versus the Turks that dared to call themselves Muslims. This, the year 1101, was the year to end the Seljuk subjugation. David captured the fortress of Jedajeni, and within the next 3 years, most of eastern Georgia was liberated. Even Libharit Bakwashi, a strong noble and a long-time enemy of the Georgian crown, was forced to surrender all of his lands by 1103. David slowly but surely pushed the Seljuks out of the country, recovering more and more land on his way as the Seljuks were forced to focus on multiple fronts, against the Crusaders at the west, the Georgians at the north, and soon by even rivaling tribes at the east. But in 1103, David managed quite an achievement. He created the post of Prime Minister del Mjiro Barahochi. Or something like that. But it was the first of such things in the whole region. Really cool stuff. But the reunification process continued. During the next year, Caucasus was successfully brought back to the kingdom. Alright, let's stop talking about these nasty war things for a while, and let's take a look here what David managed to accomplish culturally. David, he cared about his people, alright? And gave close attention to their education. The king selected children who were sent to the Eastern Roman Empire, quote-unquote, so that they be taught languages and bring home translations made by them there. And guess what? These kids all later became well-known scholars. Schools and academies were also a thing around in Georgia, among which a place called Galati held a special role. King David's personal historian wrote that it was like a second Jerusalem of all the East for learning of all that is of value, for the teaching of knowledge, a second Athens, for exceeding the first in divine law, a canon for all ecclesiastical splendors. But did you know that David also liked to sing and compose? In around 1120, David composed hymns of repentance, or Galopani Shinaludjiani, a sequence of 8 free-verse psalms. Great religious stuff. David, by the way, saw himself as a reincarnation of David from the Bible. They got the same name, so I guess that works. Both had similar relations to God and to their people. David's hymns also shared his idealistic zeal with the contemporaneous European crusaders. Naturally, they were both allies against the common threat after all. Okay, back to the whole being at war for like more than 20 years situation. And the campaign continued. David's military skills proved effective, and soon the Seljuks really started to get worried. The Muslim powerhouse declared, wait for it, jihad against Georgia, and soon an army 400,000 Muslims strong appeared at Georgia's doorstep. David himself had an army only 56,000 men strong, so that's a GG, I suppose. Well, nope, as David here, during the 12th of August 1129, managed to rout their whole freaking army on the fields of Lidrori, and achieved hands down the greatest military victory the region had seen to this day. This victory surely signaled the emergence of Georgia as a martial, cultural and political powerhouse in the region. But there was one Muslim stronghold left, the very center of Georgia, Tbilisi. After a long arduous siege, it got retaken by its rightful masters, the Georgians, and the capital, it was moved back in there. And thus, Greater Georgia, it was neatly packed together again, but the campaigns continued. Next up, Shirvan. And that place, along with the city of Oni, got merged into the emerging Greater Georgia. The local Armenians, they met David as a great liberator. Quote-unquote, King of Kings, David, son of George, sword of the Messiah. But such did not mean that David saw some kind of a hatred towards other religions. No, the direct opposite. David here was a tolerant fellow. Yes, David's kingdom was a multi-ethnic one with multiple religions in it. All religions and cultures were tolerated and had representatives, even the Muslim ones. This policy of tolerance would continue from this day forward in Georgia throughout the ages. It's deeply carved into the culture even to this day. Me likey. I approve of such niceness. David here certainly had built quite a lasting impact. A true hero to his people.